Today, ladies and gentlemen, we are joined by Rana, the CEO of Blue Lagoon Resources. Ticker symbol is BLLG on the CSE, which is a large gold and silver opportunity up in British Columbia, Canada there. So welcome, good sir.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Oh, it's all my pleasure. Now, before we get into your opinions kind of surrounding the precious metal markets and the opportunities you see on the horizon, I think people would be fascinated to hear your experience kind of in the Canadian markets, because I dug a little deep and I was glad that your team sent me some promotional information, but I'll let you take it in there because this is some pretty interesting stuff, in my opinion, from your expertise in many different fields.
Yeah, basically I'm an entrepreneur, right? I'm a generalist. I much to the pain of my parents, I never really went to school for engineering or law school or accounting or something, right? I mean, I'm a generalist. So really, my experience predominantly was in the private industry over 30 years in 5 different verticals. I'm a startup guy. I just try to be the dumbest guy in the room, man, right? I mean, surround yourself with very, very smart people in the industry that you're in. And, it has served me well. And then about 10 years ago, I got involved in the capital markets. A friend of mine, a super successful venture capitalist worth well over $300 million at the time, made a lot of his money in mining, believe it or not, in the early on. And he invited me, 2008, 2009, just that happened. It was a kind of a dismal time. I don't know if you remember. So I was looking for a change, and I jumped into mining, put over $1 million into the sector around 2011, and a few months later, it was worth about 10 grand. I was like, holy smokes, this is not what I signed up for. But you know what? The mining sector collapsed. It wasn't anyone's fault, and hey, that's the life of an entrepreneur, right? You gotta get in there, and So, anyways, I just kind of hung in there, and eventually turned those companies around into, in 2018, jumped into cannabis because cannabis was. Cannabis was super hot. And listen, as an entrepreneur, you look for opportunities, right? They say trend is your friend, right? So, that was super hot. So I was I got laser beam focused on that. And I was very fortunate. I found a company out of Eastern United States called Curaleaf. And I took them public. Curaleaf, I'm not sure if you followed it, but Curaleaf was the largest cannabis raise in Canadian history. It was a $520 million raise, nearly a $6 billion reverse takeover. And then, a couple months later, I had another opportunity again. Took another company public out of Arizona called Harvest Health and Rec, which was the 3rd largest cannabis raise in 2018. That was a $300 million raise and a $2 billion RTO. So I've got a very varied background, and people often get confused. Go, well, how can you do that? How can you go from my previous businesses were in publishing and in media? I owned an advertising agency, and how do you change? Fundamentals of business don't change, right? It doesn't matter what business you're in. The fundamentals are the same. The secret is to get the right team around you. You have to know how to lead, and not to suggest I'm a great leader or anything, but you put a team together, and you create a vision, and you use their brain trust, that brain power, right? In their the expertise that they have in their fields, and you execute, right? And that's my job as an entrepreneur.
No, 100%. I think you probably did a little better in the MJ market than I did. I got pretty lucky because I was catching wind of that back in long before it was legal, and I was luckily picking up some pretty cheap stocks there. But your background is fascinatingly diverse. So basically, I wouldn't mind talking a little bit about your minds here as well, just to give some people some insight, obviously, into the opportunities you're getting involved with now, taking that execution excellence and hopefully transferring it over to hopefully ride this gold wave, which is becoming fascinating again. Because I mean, gold and silver were kind of like dead in the water there, stagnating for quite many years. And it seems like we're getting this kind of compounding effect of just between inflation and just everything that's going on in the US and just globally right now. It seems to being just an incredible driver overall. I was taking a look at Lagoon's balance sheet because a lot of the guys on my channel here are very finicky about some of these numbers. And you are definitely a bit of a smaller cap company, but still not something to underlook considering you're so well capitalized, sitting on about 29.6 million in assets with absolutely virtually no debt, right around 273,000 only in current liabilities. So no complaints on that aspect of it. But like I was saying, I wouldn't mind you just giving me some insights on the company here as it stands, just on the financial end of it. And also, if you don't mind touching base on some of these gold opportunities as well, because these are kind of more startup mines that you're just getting into production. But we'll touch base on that in a second as well, if you don't mind.
Yeah, look, that's the opportunity, right? I mean, you got to get in early, right? Just like you said, or you got in the MJ space early. I mean, that's where the opportunity is. So I was reading a lot about the, in the macro picture that what was happening around the world, right? And this is before COVID, right? All the printing of the money and all the devaluation, of currencies all around the world, not just here in Canada, the United States, right? But all around the world. And that gave me sort of the input. That was the impetus, right? To say, hey, you know what? I think that mining is about to come back, and particularly gold, right? Because it's been 10 years, certainly. And that's why I jumped in, and people thought I was crazy, because remember, I started putting this company together almost 2 years ago, and we got trading last July. Yeah, I mean, we're doing extremely well. We picked up this amazing asset about 6 months ago that it's a fully permitted, just needs 3 amendments and only $1.5 million to finish it. I mean, it's pretty incredible. People ask me that, well, how's that possible? $68 million has been spent on this property already, 28 million just in the last dozen years on predominantly mine development and infrastructure. It takes 20 years, but generally from start to finish to by the time you get to production. So, why am I so lucky? Well, you got to be at the right place at the right time. If you work hard enough, they say you get lucky, right? So these people, wonderful people, they just ran out of time. They spent all this money, all this efforts to get this to the 1 yard line, and then they just age caught up to them. Okay, they're 83 years old and not necessarily in the best health, and they didn't have the ability, unfortunately, to execute. And along comes an entrepreneur like myself. So this property has a permitted gold mine, high grade, in a safe jurisdiction, like you said, in British Columbia, only 50 minutes away, less than an hour drive from a small mining town called Smithers, all year round access, no helicopters and no camps, because those are very expensive. That's what creates debt for all these companies that you're talking about,
Yeah.
right? Quite often, right? So we don't have any of that. And then on top of that, we have it's a very, very lots of blue sky, because historically there's 15 already known gold veins, so we don't have to go find them. And so we're going to be exploring there. And then 90% of the properties have never been explored, because these people were always focused on getting the mine into production. Right. So unfortunately for them, they were not in a great gold market, because gold was hovering around, between 12 and 1400 for all those years, and there was no excitement. And along we came, and we just raised $7.5 million. So we're fully capitalized, and as you mentioned earlier, we have virtually no debt. I'm an immigrant, man. I'm very cheap. Okay, I watch the money very carefully. Right. If you take care of the pennies, the dollars will take 100%. Care of themselves, as they say. Right. So I take that as a very serious responsibility. And I watch very carefully. So yeah, we're fully capitalized and ready to execute on our plan.
Yeah, you guys got insanely lucky, because I've been reading through a couple different gold companies as well. And obviously up here in Canada, obviously I'm a little bit more diverse in the country as well, but you're obviously cutting off the political risk. And then on top of that, I guess these guys, like you said, just bled themselves dry, because as far as I've been able to tell, a lot of people have been, if they've been capitalized enough to do acquisitions, but most of those acquisitions have been flatlining for them, or just maintaining almost a net zero after all their expenses, right? So everybody right now, I guess, is getting back into the gold rush. And you've been extraordinarily lucky picking it up when you did. So I imagine those people might be kicking themselves in the butt right now, looking at the current gold.
No, we're talking. We're talking. They're very respectful. They understand. Look, they're counting on me, right, to execute. And at our current market cap, I mean, I think we're a bargain, right? So we have a long ways to go, because how does that market cap appreciate, right? Well, you got to execute, right? So we have the mine's not in production yet, so our plans are to get that into production, next year. We have to explore, right? And we believe, if you look at some of our news releases, we're showing some great results. So as we take this money and we put it into the ground and we start to build our company, they'll be very happy, I believe.
So yeah, of the 4 current mines that you have, and I know you're just starting to get into production, but do you know when full production? Are you guys planning on getting into that next year? And how much of these deposits and these veins have you guys kind of got scanned out and planned into production?
So the mine is 1; it's not 4, right? We have 15
the one
different.
mine, yeah. And the 4
right?
veins, right?
Actually, we have 15 veins, right? So
Oh,
we have, beyond the main ones. So, no, there's lots of opportunity there. Well, there's only three things that need to really have to happen in order to get the mine into production, because the permit is already there, both an environmental and the mining permit, we have to finish our water treatment system, which we're working on right now. We have to do some bolting. There's a lot of activity happening at the mine
yeah.
site right now, and that's all happening, and the mine reclamation plan. So all that is in work. It's only a $1.5 million Canadian budget to do all that, and it's about a 4 to 5 month timeline. So let's call it 6, with COVID. So that's all in progress as we speak, and I fully expect to, and we're engaged with great conversations, with the regulators, with the government right now. So I fully expect that we'll be in a very good position to make a decision here, sometime in the spring.
That's not bad. So you'll be moving along quite quick then. Are you guys doing, I didn't look too much into it in the first place, because I know a bunch of different gold mines operate a little differently. You guys aren't doing anything with streaming or anything. Are these like directly owned mines, or how is the setup directly on
Yeah,
the capital structure?
not currently. I mean, we have interest. We're talking to a number of people, because they want they want product, right? So, but I think I'd like to be in a better position as we get closer and closer, so that the deal that we do at that time may be much different than the deal that we do now, right? So I always like to be in the driver's seat, when I'm negotiating. So I think those are discussions we're going to have early next year.
Awesome. So you guys are pretty much well on your way, and you're definitely set up here. So people want to get a little bit more due diligence on their own, they can go on the website, because we don't want to throw too many numbers here, but I'll leave that up to them. But I wouldn't mind getting your opinions as well on what you currently think of the precious metal markets. Now, I know in some of your videos, you've been pulling up those big silver bars there. So I wouldn't mind getting your opinion around that too, because your mines are also cranking out some silver. They're not just gold mines. So you're kind of getting the best of both worlds on your mining production. I got my little, this is one of my favorite silver coins right here. It's my little apocalyptic coin, which
Nice.
I think really suits the time right now. If I don't drop it there, pick that back up. But yeah, what's your current thoughts on the current precious metal market and what you think
Oh,
is
I
going on
I
here?
think I think it's what's about to happen. I think that people will be just blown away, right? And it's not me, it's leading thought, leaders in the industry. As I mentioned to you, I try to get around the smartest people in the industry. I recently had lunch with the founder of Canaccord Capital, which is one of the most respected, one of the biggest in Canada, and one of the most respected brokerage houses here. And this guy has funded more companies, mining companies, than probably the top 3 or 4 or 5 guys combined, right? I mean, he's a mining guy. He's retired now, right? And he was telling me, he says, Rana, you have remember that he has access to all sorts of data, all sorts of research.
Yeah.
He was telling me over lunch that he said, you have no idea. He said, you have no idea what is about to happen. And it's because you got 3 very key things that are happening that are unprecedented, right? You got money that's been printed like there's no tomorrow, right? I mean, it's almost like these governments have ordered extra ink, right? I mean, just to make sure they don't run out. They're printing because they need to, right? They need to keep the economy going somehow. They're propping it up. So that's number 1, right? And then you've got all these riots and these demonstrations, not just here in Canada and the United States, but really all over the world, right? So there's a lot of this unrest, right? Which gold loves. And then on top of that, you got COVID-19. I mean, a world pandemic. Who could have possibly predicted all these things happening at the same time? That's an environment that gold and silver, these precious metals, really, really, really loves. And that's what he's telling me. He says, "Man, you have no idea what is about to happen." And I believe that because, and we're in the first inning here, right? Things are just getting started, right? Currency is being devalued. It doesn't take a rocket science. It doesn't take an economic degree. You go to the store, you buy something, a coffee, or you go to a movie, and you go, really, seriously, this much for this? I mean, because the currency just isn't going anywhere, right? And so the only thing that can happen is gold and silver have got to go up, right? Not to mention all the new players that are coming into the market, investing in that.
Yeah, I try not to go down the path of getting too conspiracy a little bit, but do you have any thoughts on like China? Because I know there's a lot of, everyone talks about the manipulation in the US market when we're talking about paper, silver, and gold, because the majority of it is traded on paper and it isn't even really at the ground yet. And then obviously you have China, which is a huge advocate toward gold and making sure everybody has a little bit. And I think those are some of really interesting topics, but do you have any expertise on like the foreign aspect of it as well? In these other countries and kind of how they're playing into this. I don't really want to talk too much about the manipulation aspect, but there are some obviously factors when we're talking about paper trade. But
Well, the supply demand is very important on a world scale. I mean, North Americans are one of the, are for some reason are just waking up to gold and silver, precious metals. But around the world, I mean, people, it's in their psyche. And you
Yeah.
mentioned China. India is a great example. I mean, right from childhood, I mean, it's ingrained in their head that you've got to own some gold. And if you can't get gold, you got to own some silver, right?
Yeah.
It's a cultural thing, right? That even the poorest of the poorest, the guy might be living in a little tent, but guess what? He's going to own a gram of gold. Forget about even an ounce, right? So these are all drivers. These are all drivers that, and as North Americans, recently, I'm sure you read that Warren Buffett just got into the gold, space after forever saying I don't like gold. And now here he is realizing that, hey, maybe the banks and the dollar is not the way to go. All these create conversations in the mainstream. All these things create awareness, and all these things create a stronger demand side, right? Which is going to push the price of the metal even higher.
100%. Yeah, no, when it comes to the Buffett conversation, I bring this up a lot because I'm not the biggest advocate toward physical precious metals, just due to the fact of an individual buying physical metals themselves, the storing, the commissions on buying and selling. And I always kind of advocate toward the cash flow side of it, like Buffett is, right? Trying to buy into the stocks and the opportunities like people yourself are offering, which is where I find most of my intrigue, because I'd rather have access to all of what's in the ground, knowing it's going to cash flow, knowing you guys are trying to get that cash on the books and keep it circulating, which is going to keep growing. That's the way I would personally like to go about it. I had another interview a little while ago where we were kind of having an interesting topic about how to actually use physical precious metals, and he ended up traveling where he ran into some trouble in another country and actually paid his way out of it by using some of the gold, the little gold bars that he brings with him. And I'm like, that's the first story I've ever heard of somebody actually having real use for physical precious metal. Because like Buffett, I mean, you don't want to sit here and coddle it. Like, you want to find a way to put it to work. So why not buy into something like yourself and then have access to potentially the millions that are in the ground, right? And then hopefully, definitely in situations like this, when all of a sudden the prices jump up, 50, 100+% over a year. I mean, that definitely changes the margins on the bottom line. And then obviously with the situation continuing with, I mean, we're not looking at an onslaught of getting on the other side of this virus till probably, next summer. I mean, it's this continuity of just like you're saying, like they just keep printing money. Inflation's going out of control and people are trying to find a way out of cash. So they're flooding into stocks, they're flooding into real estate, they're flooding into gold, anything that just gets them away from cash. And I'm in the same boat.
Yeah.
Like I don't want,
it gives you better leverage, right? I mean, sure, you can have the physical, gold or the metal, and right, but obviously, if you're in a stock, if you're in a good company, you're going to get that leverage, right? And for every sort of 1 point move that gold goes up, typically the junior minor stocks go up by 10, right? So I mean, that's the beauty of it, right? But then you have to look at your risk tolerance and your own sort of personal situation.
100% with the diversification, which has been a big topic on our channel lately, because obviously there's a big age difference too on how people should be investing when they're like, I'm a little bit younger compared to some people that are a little older on our channel, which comes up a lot as well. I mean, these are fascinating conversations coming from your perspective here. Is there anything else that you're finding really interesting right now? Is there any things that are on your forefront, especially considering you keep talking about your team? And I'm curious, have you guys like allocated anybody specifically? Because I didn't go too much through your board of directors, but I know you got a few guys on there. Is anybody that really intrigues you that you think is going to offer some really good potential?
Yeah, I mean, I'm just building out that team right now. Again, my style of sort of operating is to figure out, what level is the company at, and who do you need to add on, right? So, we started off with a very lean, board, which you still have, and then brought in, one of the top geos, that's available right now. He's had many successes, and so he's on our team. And then recently, I brought on an advisor to the company who's ex BHP, 19-year veteran. He's a worldwide player, right? He had over 60 deals for BHP, from anywhere from junior little broke companies to the majors, right? So he brings a wealth of knowledge. And so now as we're working actually in the tunnel in the mine itself, right? We brought in local expertise, people who are are sort of generational miners. So you bring in all these people as you move the company up, right? Because And look, I have no problem saying that, will I be here in 3 or 4 or 5 years? I don't know, because I'm not a geologist or a mining engineer, but I believe I'm the right person currently to shepherd this, right, to steward this, to the next level, and then I'll start looking at to see, who else, do I need to bring in, maybe to be operational and run the company while I stay on the board, or maybe take a different role, right? So you look at where you're at, and you start adding and building your team accordingly, right? But the key is, to use the money that you have in treasury wisely, right, smartly, and to advance, always continue to advance. And if you follow us, some of the news releases and some of the ones that you see coming, I mean, I'm all about execution, right? You're going to see very, very aggressively moving forward, right? Because time is of the essence.
But yeah, there's not too much more. I don't think you have to follow up unless you have any other really interesting points. I really appreciate your time here. Is there anything else? Yeah, if there's anything else
No, look. All I would say is, to you and your viewers, that if they've ever been thinking about jumping into this environment, right, whether it's gold or junior miners, this is it, right? I mean, do your due diligence, find good company. I think we're a great company. There's many others, right? If there's ever a time, this is the time to do it, because generational wealth gets created in opportunities like this, right? I mean, it's unfortunate that we're sitting with COVID. It's unfortunate that we have all these riots and demonstrations going on and everything is happening around the world. But you know what? It is what it is. The two of us can't, change all that, right? But however, what we can do is we can look after our families. We can look after ourselves. And that's what I would say. I would just say, hey, check us out at bluelagoonresources.com. In Canada, we trade under the ticker BLLG. In the US, we trade under BLAGF. Check us out. And like I said, there's other companies, but this is not the time to do nothing, is my point, right?
Totally agree.
You got to get active. You got to get, buy some, even if it's a little bit of silver, a little bit of gold, right? That helps to preserve wealth, and get involved with some good companies, because there's an opportunity here to make some money.
Well, let's cross our fingers and hope, man. I really look forward to seeing how this story evolves for sure. And again, all those links in the description below, guys. But appreciate you coming out. Stay cool, stay awesome, everyone, and I'll catch you tomorrow.